Hello all. Welcome back to APEC Local India Healthcare Summit. In the second half of this summit, on the first day, first half we had interesting discussions. We had perspective from Department of Science and Technology in our session, along with NIC perspective. Also, we had a perspective from National Health Authority, and also the perspective from uh, HCC, PSU under Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, who are into the building hospitals. And then we had a special address by Gwalior Smart City CEO, Jayat Singh, on what Gwalior has done to tackle Corona, how they have leveraged technology and innovation. At the same time, we had a panel discussion on startup ecosystem, which focus on how startup and innovations are being leveraged in the healthcare industry in India and how those scripts are being rewritten in a new world order. Now, we have a special section on making India's medical device manufacturing sector Atmanirbhar or self-reliant the way forward. And for that, we have a panel of eminent guests with us. Let me introduce Mr. Rajiv Nath, Managing Director, Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Limited and Forum Coordinator, AIMED. We welcome Mr. Rajiv Nath.
Thank you.
We also welcome Mr. Ganesh P. Sabat, CEO, Shahjahanad Medical Technology, the SMP. We welcome Mr. Sabat. I think Mr. Sabat's audio is muted. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll also be joined by Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, Director, Innovation Healthcare Private Limited. He actually joined us. I think there's some technical glitch. He'll be joining us. So let me start the panel discussion with a straight question to Mr. Rajiv Nath. He has been a veteran in this medical device manufacturing sector for long years. I'm sure whatever deliberations will be met by him and other panelists will be very useful. And let me also inform you that we are going live. Entire virtual event is going live to APEC Digital News Network Facebook page and also in YouTube. And we are reaching out to various stakeholders in India and abroad also. And also let me inform you that whatever deliberations will be made today and tomorrow will be documented and will be presented to all the stakeholders who are engaged with the healthcare fraternity, be it government, be it PSUs, be it buyers, sellers, everybody will be getting a copy of the entire deliberation in the form of even report, which will be made by APEC Digital News Network. With this, I'd like to ask the first question to Mr. Rajiv Nath. Mr. Nath, you've been a veteran in medical device manufacturing sector for so many years. How do you see, or how do you feel that the medical device manufacturing sector has reinvented or show the mettle and strength to survive this unprecedented crisis, this pandemic? Your take on that?
Thank you, Mr. Goswami, for inviting us to this webinar. Well, I would say exciting times, roller coaster rides for medical device manufacturers. We have seen, being an essential product manufacturer, that we had the government chasing us to produce rapidly, supporting us intensively. We've never had the cabinet secretary, secretary DOP, secretary DPITT, directly reaching out to manufacturers through the association, trying to understand their issues and problems, and rapidly trying to make sure that they are resolved. With the result that we've had a huge increase in manufacturing capacity. Can you hear me clearly? Mr.
Yes, we can
Goswami?
hear you.
Yeah, okay. So there's been a huge increase in manufacturing capacity. So, for example, the one challenge was the PP coveralls, where from hardly 20 manufacturers, now there are more than 600 to 800 manufacturers listed with the government and around 150 listed with the IMED. From hardly 6 million pieces per annum capacity, the ones listed with IMED are producing more than 250 million pieces per annum. So quantity was one challenge to make it rapidly. So garment manufacturers, textile companies had come into the fray. And the second thing for us from IMED was to educate them on quality, on specifications, on requirements, so that they become globally competitive. And now the country has been opened up for export, so let's see how we perform internationally. The second area was in the area of ventilators, where the country was quite petrified that we may not have enough. So hardly 4,000 ventilators per annum were being made earlier by hardly 8 manufacturers, which has gone up to about 17 manufacturers with a capacity to produce currently about 50,000 ventilators per month. Now that's huge. What we were not even making in a whole year, we are making 10 times that in a month. That's really a tremendous increase, and all within a few months' time. And even many of the key components have been indigenized with the help of BEL, BHEL, Godrej, and other vendors to DRDO, which is again tremendous. So a lot of indigenization has taken place very rapidly on footing. Then we've had the issue about diagnostic tests. Of course, we've been making IVD products in the country, but an IVD test specific to COVID requires a lot of R&D, and this was more challenging because the government was not allowing access to the industry. Uh, with all the support available, one support that was missing was industry was not getting access to blood samples so that they could validate their tests on these serum or blood samples for COVID positive, so that the accuracy would be ensured. And now we've got a capacity that for the PCR kits, we have a capacity to make more than 1.5 billion per year. So not only for the country, but we're also exporting by the 8 manufacturers in the country. And you've already seen in the papers that we can now do a 1 million, 10 lakh or 1 million pieces of tests per day. Similarly, for the VTM tubes, for the swabs, the N95 masks and surgical masks, uh, there was mask manufacturing before also, but people were preferring to import. And now the people who were preferring to import themselves have put up the factories rapidly in a couple of months' time, bought in the machines by air freight from China, and are producing rapidly. So I would say yes, uh, India has shown it. We have the ability, we have the metal. Uh, Once the government gives the right kind of support, we do step forward and we can take care of the country's needs over there. Let's see how this momentum keeps us going forward.
Yeah, I think Mr. Nath has touched upon this in a very important aspect on how medical device manufacturing sector has excelled during this difficult times. And as we have said that when you talk about ventilators, what we used to make in a year, we made 10 times more than in a month. So that also shows that if there is a will, there is a way, and I think that also will be very important for coming days and years. And as we know, this it's almost a $10 billion market. If we talk about medical device market in India, I was going to Invest India literature, and it also says that there is a potential of growth of this sector in India is almost $50 billion by 2025. That is huge, and I think this unprecedented crisis has also pushed the medical device manufacturing sector to go for more and more fast-paced production, which is now proven that that can be done with conducive policy when all stakeholders can come together. I'll take a cue from this and I'll go to Mr. Ganesh. Mr. Ganesh, as a part of medical device manufacturing sector industry, what do you think that you as an industry part of industry, what kind of soaps or what kind of relaxations you want more from government when it comes to policy making? Do you have any particular thing in mind which can be helpful for this sector in coming months or coming years, especially when we are all fighting with this unprecedented crisis of pandemic and corona?
Thank you, Sovik. Thanks for that question. A very interesting question. So, you just touched upon the fact that Indian medical device sector is $10 billion. I think out of that, there will be also export included into it,
Yes.
right? And so the domestic market itself is small, to tell you very frankly. We are, 130 crore population, but I think the market, if you look at it, it's very small, very tiny, probably $7-8 billion. When you look at $7-8 billion, it might be really big, but remember This $7-8 billion is from some thousand or odd products. So when you look at that, every industry, the largest industry might be of 2,000, 3,000 crore, and it will come down to 10 crore or 5 crore kind of categories product wise. So what is happening when you talk about expanding the market or creating this ecosystem in India? Yes, you will have ecosystem built for that 2,000, 3,000 crore product category like stent, like we are present right now, like cath lab, where Gaurav is present, right? Or where Rajiv ji is present, the consumables which are large. But there are many other product categories though where the market is very, very small, very tiny. And I can give you example of 20 products, you know, where the market should be much, much larger. And why it is important, if you want to build an opportunity in medical device, you know, the opportunity will knock your door, but you have to build that door. If you don't have that door, opportunity will not come to you, right? So what is that door? The door is to create that larger market. Today, why instant you have five players? Because it's a 3,000 crore. You can easily say, I will invest 50 CR, but I can earn that money in 5 years or 10 years. If we have a market for 10 CR, I invest 20 CR, 30 CR, I will never make money out of it. So I think the policy that the government should look at how to create a larger market. And I think government is talking the right language here. Atmanirbhar Bharat, and that Atmanirbhar Bharat has to go along with Ayushman Bharat. At, we cannot be Atmanirbhar without Ayushman Bharat. Why? This Ayushman Bharat, if it covers this 1.2 billion population, it will become very, very large market in every product category. Once you have this large market, there will be companies who will come and invest. In COVID, one of the things that we have learned that overnight or in a couple of months, from you know probably 100 or 500 ventilator manufacture per month, we jumped into now supplying to the whole world. Why this happened? There is a market. The Indian government said that I'm going to buy all the ventilators, the PPE, the N95 mask. There's no one. And eventually, you have got a large number of player. We are self-sufficient because there's a large market that got created. So I think the government policy, what I see right now, it's still not very clear. Like Ayushman Bharat, right? And the point is Ayushman Bharat covers only very small number of product for reimbursement. Today, even what happens in Japan or Europe or in US, you get a product approval. There is immediately a central reimbursement agency which will tell you that your product will get reimbursed by this price. That agency is not there here in India. That is the thing that we expect the government to do. Today, if we are bringing a TAVI who should replace valve surgery, then all the reimbursement should know what price and how they're going to reimburse that. Without that happening, I don't think our policy will be well directed. We need to create that door so that we can get into. Once you are a large enough player in the domestic market, the whole world is there. There are lot of advantage to be in India right now. The kind of resources that we have and the way we can be competitive without compromising on the quality. There's a huge advantage that we can bring up, but we need that power, and that power will come having a larger domestic market, and that's what government should focus on.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective when you say that when Mr. Ganesh is saying that Implication of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Ayushman Bharat is important. And he's saying that government is talking the right language. So it shows the intent is there. But you're saying that a lot more to be needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one part. You're saying that if somebody wants to knock the door of opportunity, somebody has to build that door first. And you're saying that larger market ecosystem has to be created, and corona crisis have shown that larger kind of market can be made. And I think when you himself being part of the industry saying that government is talking the right language, obviously there are challenges, there are impediments, and I think those can be overcome with right intention. And Ayushman Bharat or National Digital Health Mission or Atmanirbhar Bharat are all are in the right direction according to the stakeholders. I'll take a cue from what Mr. Sabath is saying. He gave the example of Japan, but I won't give the example of Japan. Rather, I'll take a direct question to Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, who has joined us. He's the director of Involution Healthcare Private Limited. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Agarwal.
Thank you,
My
Souvik.
Yeah, so my question will be for India's medical device manufacturing sector. Can we say that China's loss is India's gain for future?
Well, there are a couple of ways to look at it, and I will just allude to what Ganesh and Rajiv ji have said. I think India's gain certainly. I mean, COVID has proven that companies or industries that grow fantastically in times of crisis are those not that are not the smartest, but that are the most adaptable. I think indigenous manufacturers have shown tremendous adaptability in rising to this challenge. Um, can we match what China is doing? Can we become the global manufacturing hub for medical devices like China today is? I think there is some distance to cover. I mean, let's hold a mirror to ourselves. And while we can all feel great about Atmanirbhar campaign, I still feel there is a long way to go. I completely agree with Ganesh that the environment is very conducive. The launch of the performance linked incentive scheme, the slew of medical device parks that have been announced, also DPIIT, Niti Aayog, DST working in tandem to fund a lot of initiatives towards technology and innovation in medtech. These are all positive green shoots, but I think a still lot still needs to be done. A lot still needs to be done. So, for example, I would refer to a report that DPIIT and Niti Aayog jointly tabled. It says that Indian manufacturers still have a disadvantage of 10 to 15% compared to global manufacturers in reaching scales of economy. So Niti Aayog has identified that Indian manufacturers are at a disadvantage either because of very high content of import, foreign exchange fluctuations, lack of skilled manpower, availability of technology, etc. I think the environment is conducive and we are on the right path. One of the things that I would like the government to see for us to compete with China, especially in the medtech space, is to encourage a lot of academic institutions of excellence like the IITs to have very active bio incubators. And at this point in time, I would like to ask the panel, I mean, how many products have they seen coming out of all the eminent institutions that we have in the country? We have some institutions in the country which are among the top 100 global institutes, but we have very poor industry and academia interface. That is one area I'd like to point out. A lot of these institutions, academic institutions, have capabilities to bring out, and I'm a case in point. We tied up with IIT Bombay at the peak of, or at the beginning of the pandemic, and we developed a ICU grade ventilator with IIT Bombay in about 33 days flat. Went on to win the MG Motors Ventilator Innovation Challenge Award. So it can be done, but we do not see a lot of products seeing the light of the day from these bright academic institutions, primarily because of poor industry and academia interface. That is one. What we also need to do to beat China at its game of being the global backyard for medtech manufacturing is create. So, in fact, I had said this in the past that the government needs to look at ABC. It's as simple as ABC. First is to acknowledge the areas where there is very high import dependence, where there needs to be not only import substitution, but greater but greater domestic capabilities built. So, for example, I represent medical electronics. We are a cath lab manufacturer, and about 26,000 crore of medical electronics are imported into the country every year out of total import of 40,000. So 60% of total medical device import is just medical electronics. And there are products like MMIs, touch screens, battery packs, sensors, X-ray equipment, MRIs. All of these form a bulk of this 26,000 crores. So first is to acknowledge the sectors that need a domestic boost, that need import substitution. The second is to build and boost. The B part is build and boost. How do you build and boost? Create a very strong interface between industry and academic bioincubators so that a lot of these interesting technologies that right now are only becoming a report or a thesis see the light of the day. What you also need to do is create a very conducive environment, give tax ops for startups. The third very important part of build and boost is to provide industry the financial support. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, who apply to various schemes of the government. They're extremely encouraging, but none of them provide any working capital support. And one of our subsidiaries has a base in China, and they have a program called a Thousand Lights program, which is a very interesting program. Chinese government every year identifies 1,000 technologies that it wants to bring into the country. And if you have any technological know-how in one of those 1,000 areas, you're immediately given a $1 million grant. That kickstarts their entire innovation ecosystem. That is such a huge motivation for startups and MSMEs to start building what the country needs. We need something similar in the country. A lot of the schemes that the government has supports plant and machinery, but they don't support working capital. How are you expected to nurture your MSME sector without providing them the funding support? And third is champion. You need to champion the cause of your own industry. We are talking to the US Trade Department, and we are talking of giving additional SOPs in terms of customs duty discounts. This is absolutely contrary to the Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Why, in the public procurement policy, domestic manufacturers still don't have preferential market access? And we have some sectors in medtech. Ganesh represents one of them. The stent industry has been extremely successful. They've shown the way that given the right environment and given the right quality, Indian manufacturers can be pegged among the best in the world. Rajiv Nathji represents one of such brilliant companies. I mean, not only does he have a lion's share of the Indian market, but very, very strong exports. In diagnostic industry, we've shown this. In orthopedic implant industry, we've shown this. But unfortunately, in other sectors, especially in medical electronics, a lot of government procurement still has US FDA and CMA clauses. So that was a long-winded answer. I'm sorry, but that's really my perspective, Souvik.
I don't think it was long. It was very important because what you have raised are very pertinent points coming from an industry which is very vibrant, and a lot of needs to be done and can be done, and that is the sole purpose of having a session on this two-day healthcare conference, that where we can have divergent views together. We can discuss on that, discuss on those challenges, then we document document those deliberations and send to the right stakeholders, to the policymakers, or whoever is the right stakeholders. And let me also inform you that we have got that 1,000 plus CXOs of hospitals. Their support with us up at Digital News Network in the healthcare endeavor, and we are lucky to have that. But I will take this question to Mr. Rajiv Nath. What Mr. Gaurav has said is very important. I think for me, one of the most important part what it has raised is that ecosystem has to be created where there has to be more and more interaction between center of excellence and industry, and also how do we intend how do you give soaps or financial support to this startup incubator fraternity? He gave the example of China. I think that thousand program. What's your take on that, Mr. Rajiv?
Uh, Very well spoken by Ganeshji and Gaurav, and for setting the pace of the discussion. I won't say divergent views, I would say complementary views, because all of us are passionate Make in India manufacturers. So we all have the same objective to make in India for the world and to produce that with quality and responsibly. So, as a forum coordinator for IMET, I keep on getting a lot of inputs from manufacturers, which I have to collate, coordinate, and then put that across to the government. So, the kind of problems which I am normally listening, other than the biggest problem which I hear currently here is uh, working capital. The government is the biggest buyer, and government is the worst paymaster. Andhra Pradesh government has not paid for more than a year. UP has not paid many of its suppliers for more than 6 months. People who supplied in crisis time in March and in April during complete lockdown, gloves, defibrillators to Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, they have not paid them till now. Paid them zero. Not even the starting installment has not been paid. So having payments for beds to companies like Midmark, 20 crore rupees, 30 crore rupees outstanding from government institutions is bleeding the manufacturers. They've stepped forward and they're not being supported. This is the first biggest problem I find, I hear. The second problem I hear is how do we compete with low custom duties? You already have 0% of 5% and 7.5% custom duty. Reduce custom duty in cars to 7.5%. Will our great automobile industry do well? Reduce mobile phone duty back to zero. Now it is 15-20%. In last 3-4 years, from zero we went to 20%, and the industry went up like this. So how do you expect that 85% import dependency of India on medical devices? This talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat will only be done by putting up medical device parks in certain states. These parks will remain green parks, not populated parks. So we have to put first and foremost a custom duty of 15-20%. Next issue I hear is about quality. Okay, the government is now putting restrictions on China for supplies to the government. That is pleasing for us to hear. But we have still not heard anything categoric that a price preference would be available to Indian manufacturers. In the past, whenever a state government or Indian government was taking money from ADBA or from the World Bank and financing a tender, there is always a clause in every World Bank tender to give a 15% price preference to domestic manufacturer. It is all over the world. The whole world does it. Jordan, Malaysia, South Africa, everybody does it, supporting their local manufacturing. We don't do that. We expect that we will be matching the L1 price of China. Which businessman will match the L1 price of China, which is coming at nil or 7.5% custom duty, and make losses and keep the price stable for 2 years and not be paid on time, whereas imports are paid by LC at site. So imports are paid on time, and domestic manufacturers were not paid on time. So this is the big issue over here. The next issue over here is when the buyer or the government says we don't want to buy Chinese quality or rubbish, let us put a quality barrier. They jump to the other extreme. They say we want a US FDA approved stent. Mr. Ganesh Sabat is here, he can speak about it later on. He's got a DCGI approved stent selling to the world market, and he cannot even bid for a tender in Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. This is shameful. We export to the world, and our own state government hospitals and our central government hospitals and railways and defense will put this clause and keep us out from bidding in our own market. So such kind of terms which keep us out from the market, even though the government is aware about this issue, they try to help us, but trying to help by polite advisories is not going to help. Anybody who puts such clauses, he should be put in the jail or fined from his pocket. The next issue is regarding the private sector. In private sector, a startup who may be dealing with IIT and with lot of josh, he comes forward and makes a low cost, low quality product. Then he finds he's not succeeding. Why he's not succeeding? He is giving the product at half the price. It should do very well. Mr. Ganesh Sabat's company is doing well now. Why it was not doing 10 years back? That time also he was making stands at half the price or one-fourth the price of imports. Why? Because the government listened to the consumers and put a price cap. The price cap not only helped the consumers but also manufacturers like SMT and other stent manufacturers. With the result, the hospital was forced to buy on the buying price, not on the basis of the MRP and margins to be made. So immediately the market dynamics changed to real marketing. So this is what we've been asking. The government should put a cap of 4 times. Nothing coming into the country from imports should be having MRP of more than 4 times. Currently, consumers are paying more than 20 times the import landed price, which is completely wrong. And then we Indian manufacturers have to play with the game, and we also have to keep similar MRP. My IV cannulas, which I am selling for 6 rupees ex factory, I'm telling honestly, as HMD, we are putting 120 to 150 rupees MRP. Is it correct? Of course not. I cannot sleep at night. I worry about this. But if I don't do it, I cannot sell anything. So the only way is I can ask the government to correct the environment. The next issue is regarding quality infrastructure. For testing, how do I prove my quality? So we need to have quality infrastructure and testing. Many things we can test in the house, and MSME can also invest in the house up to 1 lakh rupee, 3 lakh rupee. But if a machine is costing 50 lakh rupee or 1 crore rupee, then testing has to be done by specialist labs. You saw the problem for N95 mask and ventilators. Okay, 70% or 80% testing could be done in some DRDO lab or in some government lab here or BIS lab here. But there is not a single laboratory till date which can do all the tests for N95 mask till even now. So the industry became Atmanirbhar, but our testing laboratories have not become Atmanirbhar. We have to become self-reliant over there to prove to the world that we make quality products in India. Then we can go forward. Regarding the academia industry linkages, what Mr. Gaurav mentioned, this is one area I must compliment the government. In the last 5 years, hats off to especially DBT. DST is doing quite fine, but DBT has done wonders in reaching out through BIRAC and their big programs and creating incubators, venture parks like Venture Fund in Pune. You got IKP in Hyderabad, Bangalore. They've done wonderful job in creating the C camp also in South India. They've done wonderful jobs in creating products, even during COVID. So, like Gaurav mentioned that so rapidly he worked with IIT. They've got a very nice biotech program in IIT Bombay. So, there is a change happening in the country in the last 5 years. I'm happy to compliment both the academy and the government on that. We need to build on that. So, the basics are missing. I'll be honest, we industry do not know what is R&D. So, we have to be taught what is R&D. Basics of creating an R&D department in a small organization. We don't even know what is that. We know how to make a reverse engineering and make a copy. But unless we know how to make a structured system of R&D, we will not be able to become really self-reliant in the long run. My thoughts.
I have jotted down 5 to 6 major points which have been mentioned by Rajiv Nath. And I think those questions have to be put forth before the government. I don't think it's not that government doesn't know the pain of this sector, but I think again this kind of platform also help us to again look into those issues, and maybe it also goes to the right people in the government, and I'm sure the event report which we'll be making will be circulated to right stakeholders so that this can be read and worked upon. As you said at the very last, that R&D. I'll take a cue from what you have said because a major point you have already covered. I'll go to this question to Mr. Ganesh Sawat, also to Gaurav Agarwal. Mr. Nath has said that there has to be an ecosystem where we focus more and more on R&D, and investment has to be there. That can be a small company, that can be a medium company. Okay, big MNCs already are doing that. But how do we ensure that even a smaller medical device manufacturing company have a small set of our R&D if there is no uh, financial assistance to that company. Your take on that, Mr. Ganesh Sawat. I'll come to Mr. Gaurav after that.
Yeah, so I think we have a very a great panel. Let me put it this way: you have diagnostic consumables, where Rajiv ji is talking about certain aspects which are very very critical, because those small things matters a lot. When you add it up all together, it becomes a bigger problem and becomes prohibitive enough to jump into it. You have Gaurav. He's into medical equipment, also in medical device, and we are purely a medical device player. So within three of us, you have got the complete industry, medical device industry as such.
And I'm playing the role of devil's advocate.
And you're doing a fantastic job onto that. Let me say. So now you have talked about on innovation, and why I talked about, we have about three different players, and innovation on all these three players are a little different. Okay, I'm giving you the example of our industry, medical device, particularly implants. Okay, in the implants, when I look back, the investment that you need to do in a medical implant, one is the R&D, which is the product development. The second is the preclinical investment. The third is the clinical investment. And the fourth is the investment into plant and machinery. These are the four different categories of investment you make. And so, Bigji, guess what? Actually, the lowest investment is required in product development, then plant and machinery. You add product development and plant and machinery, the total cost will go into preclinical. Three times more will go to clinical. Okay, that's implant. I know Gaurav will have a very different, take onto that, because we are actually very different in equipment to implant. For us, actually, product development, the challenge that we will have in product development is to how to develop, where to get the talent to develop. Even if I go, I can develop a product, but the quality comes with experience. If I develop a product and somebody is developing that product for 20 years, I cannot match that quality overnight. It's not possible. You need that experience. India doesn't have that experience, but there are ways to get that experience. And like we have set up our R&D center in Ireland, Galway, where we get that experience in hand because we have the talent. They know what to do, how to do, and that fine tuning or optimizing that can be done with the experience, bringing that experience. We have worked with different universities. The innovation that we brought in is the biodegradable polymer. That actually we worked with UDCT, and it's UDCT working with our R&D team. We developed that technology. And today, when you talk about this biodegradable technology, even the our companies from US, they're trying to come into this particular space, and even after 10 years, it is considered the gold standard. And this biodegradable technology came from India and from UDCT. So I think that R&D is absolutely can be done. We have got fantastic engineers. Every day when you manufacture, there are engineering problem. We find engineering solutions to that. That's not a challenge. The challenge comes when we invest in preclinical. Today, there is only one animal lab, Srichitra, and if you want to do an animal study, it's horrible. We have to go to Europe, where the cost immediately goes 10 times. If I go to US FDA, the same cost that I will incur in Srichitra, 7 to 8 lakhs, the cost will be 20 crore if I am planning for US FDA, right, for preclinical. And if I do a clinical, then that cost, if I do it in Europe, it will be 50, 60 CR. If I do it in US, it will be 150 to 180 CR. But my R&D cost will be probably 5 to 10 CR. My plant and machinery cost will be 15 to 20 CR. Okay. The investment and the focus lies on this side for the implant industry. I think Gaurav probably can correlate because he has another implant company also. And why? Because if I want to be an innovative company and I want to be a world leader, 50% market is in US. However, I beat my head, there will be 130 countries which will be contributing 50%, and there's one country which is contributing 50%. I will, like a farmer, I'll keep on farming one country after another, one country after another, 130 countries. By the time I will have gray hair, which is already there, or you go to US market and take up that market, right? So I think that's what exactly what you need. I think innovation can be brought in India. What do you need to know? How do you do preclinical? How do you do clinical and become a larger global player? Just focusing on India market, small, small, tiny, tiny market will not make us India a great medical device company. And that's what actually China doing in implant. And they're horrible in implant. I have not heard Chinese implants are great. In our industry, this medical implant industry, they are horrible. And they are playing the card of, okay, we'll develop the product and we'll, you know, sell it at a low price. It will never work because you, me, Rajiv ji, or Gaurav will never implant a product which is not safe enough, which you will never buy because it's very, very cheap. Quality, we don't know, but it's very cheap. We'll never do that, right? So for our industry, high quality, good investment preclinical trial, good investment in clinical trial, it will make a big, big factor for us. Innovation, you know, we can do. India is, has got a lot of talent to do innovation. Gaurav can talk more about it. He built the medical equipments, the cath labs, which are like high level of technology in a 1.5 year, I believe. Gaurav said, I'm getting into that, and then he has a cath lab. Just a blink of eye. I'm pretty sure he has done a lot of hard work, but it can be done. My point is, it can be done in India.
Gaurav, your take on this?
Yeah, so my take is, I mean, just extending what Rajiv ji and Ganesh have already said. So R&D in India, I was at a panel very recently. This was one of the biggest academic institutions in the country, very, very prominent engineering institute. There were 8 medtech and pharma innovators, and there was a question that was raised. So, how do you define quality? And it was surprising, 6 of them got it completely wrong. They gave an answer which went into minutes, whereas there is a very simple definition of quality. So I think quality consciousness begins right from the top. And we do not have that. We talk about Atmanirbhar, but Atmanirbhar means nothing without being Sarvottam. You need to be Swavlambit first and then Sarvottam. We are not talking about these two critical elements. Atmanirbhar without being Swavlambit, without being Sarvottam will not happen. I think there needs to be a culture. Rajiv ji had once suggested that there needs to be a quality vigilance commissioner of the highest rank, perhaps in the government of India, in the Niti Aayog, and I completely support that. India is seen as a great place where you can go to for substitution at a low cost. I think that mindset needs to change. And I would like to walk everybody back in time. Look at what Japan did. Sony, Mr. Masaku Isumara, very few people have heard his name, the founder of Sony.
Tony.
After World War II, Japan had the same reputation that China has today. Japan was only known for building low cost substitutes for anything that was available in the world. The chairman of Sony said single handedly that we will make Japan a country that supplies the best quality, at least in automotive industry and in electronics industry. And his vision was to miniaturize everything. I mean, we used to have those huge 2-in-1 players. He brought in an MP3 player. So Sony's goal was to miniaturize and produce the highest quality, raise the standard of Japanese goods to a level where if anybody was looking for a high quality product, they would look at Japan. And see what they've achieved in the last 50 to 60 years with that kind of mindset. Just one person, Misako Ibura, the chairperson of Sony. In India, when we set out to build a cath lab, there are only 8 manufacturers of cath labs globally. When we set out to build a cath lab, all our customers and I and Ganesh's companies go to the same cardiologist, about 4,000 cardiologists across the country. About 800 of them told us, you know what, a cath lab is available at, let's say, 4 crores, build it at half the price and you'll be successful. We said, how about technical features? How about the aesthetic appeal? And quite a few of them laughed in my face and said, so you are now thinking about aesthetic appeal in a product that is going to be in a dreary hospital operation suite. Who cares about how it looks? Who cares about new features? You guys are new kids on the block. You're Indian. Be satisfied with making something that works at half the price. So this is what the market expects from an Indian company. We went on, we had only 3 design goals for ourselves. We said we will make the smallest possible cath lab that we can, that money can buy. We will make a cath lab that has the best image quality. You know, you determine the quality of a cath lab by just what you see on the screen. There's a lot of processing that happens. And third, we will make it the most aesthetically appealing piece of medical equipment in the world. People said the first two are understandable. Why aesthetically appealing? Why bother how it looks? And that's where we go wrong. A lot of times, what we build in India performs extremely well. We are very good at looking at specification A, B, C, D, E, F, matching that to the T. But does our product have an international look and feel? Does it look international quality? No. You hold you hold a smartphone from Lava, you hold a smartphone from Samsung. The technical specifications may be the same, but it's the visual appeal that makes all the difference. And that is where a premium of 2 or 3x comes in. We went on to win the Good Design Award from Ministry of Japan. We went on to win the Red Dot Design Award, which is the Grammy of Design Awards in Germany. We went on to win the India Design Award. We went on to win every conceivable award in the industry on industrial design. People are completely unaware of this faculty called industrial design, which, in my opinion, is as much a part of quality as matching specification A, B, C, D, E, F. The second challenge is that we've been importers from China in our early days. One batch would be of sublime quality, and the very next batch would be of ridiculous quality. So, from sublime to ridiculous in 15 days flat, unpredictable. In India, when you have to build a Taj Mahal, building it beautifully for the first time is not a challenge. Try making 100 Taj Mahals of the same quality. That is a challenge. And that is something that I think Indian manufacturers need to sensitize themselves to. Like Ganesh rightly pointed out, the bigger markets are outside India. And unless you have repeatable, scalable, sustainable quality, you will not be a serious player internationally. And I think both HMD and SMT have proven that if you have consistency in quality, if you invest in clinical trials, if you invest in the right R&D infrastructure, it is possible to become a global player, and it doesn't take 20 years. It takes 5 to 6 years for a serious player. I think there are a bunch of Indian manufacturers who will rise to the occasion, and there'll be several more polymedicures, HMDs, SMTs in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm very, very confident.
I think if we talk about the silver lining on what Gaurav has said and Ganesh ji has said and Rajiv Nath has said that as Mr. Rajiv Nath has said that we are having complementary views. I said we are having divergent views, but yet they're all passionate because all of you were sitting here having a passionate point of view for the medical device sector in India, and I think if I sum up the entire discussion of last almost an hour or so, that I know there are challenges. We all know there are challenges. There has to be some. There are challenges in policy part. There are challenges in the R&D part, financing part, implementing those policies, taking stakeholders together. And very important point raised by Mr. Gaurav when he said that we have to be Sarvottam first to make Atmanirbhar a success. And as Mr. Ganesh ji has also focus on the innovation part. And Rajiv Nath has completely laid out the pain points of medical device industry. I have jotted down the point. One is unpaid dues by government, very important part. I think it has to be looked into. Reduced custom duty, financing startups, and price preference to Indian manufacturers, and also domestic organizations should be allowed to bid for domestic market, and also there is a huge market outside India. I think if I take all these complementing views together, I still believe those are divergent views, but those are actually passionate. I think it should be heard by the right stakeholders so that action can be taken. And I think I am again saying that these are not new challenges. We know we are living with these challenges, and government also knows. And I'm hope that pertinent policies will be taken in coming months, coming years. See, let us be very clear. This unprecedented times of last 6 months, globally in India, the Corona crisis has shown us. It's proven now. Things which used to take 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, 2 years has been done in couple of weeks. So various agencies working in silos, all those silos have been broken, and the things have been done and delivered in weeks. So no one had thought of that. So I think those are the right things. Again, when I started this session and started the day, I said unprecedented crisis results in unprecedented innovation, unprecedented policies, unprecedented decisions. I think also for medical device industry sector, uh, some positive decisions will be taken by government which are aligned with the pain point of industry. And I think Rajiv Nath ji wants to say something. He was raising his hand. Quickly, 30 seconds to you before we wrap this session.
Yes, what Gaurav said was very right. Quality is the key part of it, and government being the biggest buyer needs to incentivize that. As an entrepreneur, as a manufacturer, we have to manage our companies by our abilities. We don't need the government to do that. And from IMED, we don't seek subsidies. But yes, these policy support which is required is needed. And when people make quality, we should not be asked to match the L1 price. We should be incentivized and given a preference for that. Same thing for regulations. We cannot have a country going without regulations endlessly. Now we are being asked to still work under the Drug Act. We are engineering products, so we have to move out from Drug Act and need to have a separate act. Niti Aayog started working on that, and you mentioned that why this has not happened so far. These issues must have been raised by us to the government before also. Why they've not acted? They've not happened because of a huge lobby of importers who want to stop their 42,000 crore rupees market share converting to the Indian products market share. So they lobby with the government and they try to convince the government that India is not ready to make high quality products. We are not ready to make implants. We are not ready to make high technology products. And regarding regulations, if you make them tough, then how will the MSME survive? If you make them loose, then there'll be patient safety issues. So they keep on trying to confuse the government into inaction.
Right, right. I think I am running short of time. I'll quickly end this session. But before we end, let me thank Mr. Rajiv Nath, Managing Director, Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Limited, also Forum Coordinator for AIMED, Mr. Ganesh P. Sabat, CEO, Sajanand Medical Technologies, SMT, and Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, Director in Evolution Healthcare Private Limited, for joining us today. Before we wrap this session up, let me again remind all of you that APEC Global Healthcare Innovation Conclave is being broadcasted live through APEC Facebook and YouTube page. For today and tomorrow, we'll have many more sessions. We had some important sessions where we are getting policymakers, we are getting a perspective from policymakers, we're getting a perspective for technology, perspective from government, also from medical device industry, also from health tech startups, healthcare industry, also from hospital CXOs. As I was saying, that we are connected with 1,000 plus hospital CXOs, CEOs, and CEOs, and also healthcare PSUs and healthcare government agencies. So I'm sure the deliberations being made today and will be made today and tomorrow will be of utmost importance. I'm again saying we are going to document this entire deliberation and will be producing this documentation to all the stakeholders so that action can be taken. When we form Apple Digital News Network, we are very sure that we'll create meaningful dialogue by bringing communities together so that action can be worked upon. And I'm sure the deliberations made today in this session also will be of use for future months, future generations to come. Thanks a lot, Mr. Rajiv Nath, Ganesh Sabat, Gaurav Agarwal, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Masood.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Souvik.